your host, Stephen Barr.
I'm Rahul Subramaniam, and we are live this morning from Las Vegas. It's very bright and early. As you can see, the sun hasn't even risen, but there is so much to cover, and we wanted to get you all of this information first thing in the morning.
Absolutely. It's been a really just jam-packed day yesterday. Today is going to be even busier. Actually, busier for a couple of reasons. Actually, we have a little clip as a preview of part of why it's going to be busier. Let me roll that.
Save some money.
Yes, I do.
Well, come along to our session tomorrow.
It is COP 219S. As a sneak peek, myself and Darko are going to be two green developers just getting started. And Steph, what are you?
I'm the friendly neighborhood SA. So if you're bored of the normal breakout sessions, come along to this one because it's going to be interesting.
I think it's going to be fun. We might not win any acting awards, but you'll learn how to save some money.
Yes, definitely. That is the key prop. We're going to be saving you money, helping you learn how to do more things in the world of FinOps.
So thanks everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. at the Wynn.
See you there.
Rahul, Steph, Darko, and myself, we are going to be performing a cost-saving spectacular. That's 11:30 a.m. today. That's yesterday's tomorrow. 11:30 a.m. today at the Wynn, Lafite number 4. If you are here, please join if you can. That's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. It's going to be an absolutely fun show. You will hopefully learn a lot, but you might cringe at some of the acting that we plan ahead. But it's going to be fun overall.
I think it's good that we're giving people that warning in
Yes.
advance. So know what to expect. We're not actors, but it's gonna be fun. And I think if you can laugh along with us, then we'll all have a good time. All right.
Let's talk the second one.
Yes. Oh, yes. You got to talk.
Correct. So I have a talk, COP 218S, that is at 2:30 p.m. And so please come by. I'm going to be talking about our experience of how we've saved over $100 million, or from saving over $100 million for our customers. And that's going to be as interactive as possible. We have a great, big time slot. So we're going to cover a lot of different things during that session. It's the pragmatic approach to saving money within your organizations. And I know that there's tons of friction that a lot of you face as you're, challenged with increasing costs and trying to figure out how to actually execute it. So we're going to share some of our insights, some of our learnings, things that we've learned from AWS, from other AWS customers. So I'm going to share all of that today at 2:30 p.m. So please join COP 218S for my session there. Look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, absolutely. COP 218S. I've put it in the banner. Everyone got that? COP 218S. That is 2:30 p.m. also at the Wynn. And then for those of you not here, I believe these get recorded.
Yes, these are getting recorded, both of them. So, which is scary for the first one in particular. But yes, both those sessions are going to be recorded. They are going to be available on YouTube and other channels shortly, hopefully next week. AWS is pretty diligent about those. So if you don't catch them live, you can catch them later on in the week.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. They will be. It takes a couple of days, but they'll be there. All right. We're talking about Adam's keynote. We made some predictions last episode. One prediction that we made is here. Prediction Graviton 4.
Yeah. So, like I said, it had been well over a year since the previous generation of the Graviton processors was announced. So, really glad to see that process hasn't slowed down in any way. Adam announced the Graviton 4 processors, the R8G.
Yep.
Got announced yesterday. So that's pretty neat. If you're running databases or self-managed databases, R8Gs should be really neat. We will do a more thorough deep dive into the Graviton 4 instances and everything that they have going for them. We will do that in an episode not too far from now. We'll hopefully get someone from AWS to talk about all the details about the Graviton 4 instances. So, and where you should use them and what are the benefits of doing that. So we'll bring that episode to you shortly. But glad to see that.
Yeah, it's also neat to think there are now 3 generations of Graviton in the wild. I mean, there's still plenty of announcements about Graviton 2s hitting hitting new regions. So they're still working on the rollout of now one that's 2 generations old.
Correct.
And I believe it's like the AMD processors in that it's not, I mean, as the Gravitons get faster and faster, but there's plenty of use cases for previous generations when you don't need cutting edge speed necessarily. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's not so much about cutting edge speed. Generally, when you look at this is what I call instance modernization. When you're sitting on an older instance type, usually for the most part, moving to the latest instance type is generally more cost effective. Now they're more cost effective on 2 different dimensions. In a bunch of cases, moving to the latest generation of the instances actually means that you are paying less on a per hour basis for those instance types. Now that's not true for every single instance type, but for the vast majority of instance types, when you move to the latest generation, it actually gets cheaper, which is very counterintuitive. When you're in the on-premise world, buying new hardware or the latest generation hardware always costs more. But in the server world, it's actually different. It kind of flips a little bit. The second dimension is that some of the performance improvements on the latest generation of instances is just so significant that you might actually be able to downsize a size of the instance type by just having that extra performance. So if, say, you were running a 12x large or a 16x large today with an older generation, you might be able to, so if it's a 16x large, you might be able to, size down to a 12x large. And that brings down costs significantly.
It's that 2-step move in the dance, right? Where the first step 1 is next generation.
Exactly.
And then step 2 is size down, because for a given load, you can do it with fewer cores because the cores are better and faster and usually wider. Actually, interestingly, remember when we had Arthur Petit-Pierre on, and we had the same discussion for 2 versus 3. When do you use either one?
Yes.
I think we need to give him a call.
I think we should. Now it's going to be Graviton 4, so we should do 2 versus 3 versus 4.
Yes.
So that'll be an interesting conversation. So we'll see if we can get Arthur back on the show and have that specific conversation.
Yeah.
But the other one that we can actually see live in production today is the AMD instances. So when you look at the latest generation of the Genoa instances of the AMD processors, they are 40% better than the previous generation. So in a large number of cases, if you have enough headroom in your current instance, then you might be actually able to not only switch over to the latest generation AMD, which is very marginally more expensive, but overall, in terms of downsizing, actually, it opens up a lot of potential for downsizing one size and having a much better utilization on your instances.
Well, and similar with the AMD's Epic Genoa and the Gravitons is vCPU means 1 core.
Correct. So that one is the interesting conversation. So a lot of people, do core-to-core, mapping, but a 2.4 gigahertz on, and Intel is not the same as a 2.4 gigahertz on an AMD Epic Genoa or an older generation, AMD, for a simple reason that the latest generation of the Genoa instances, basically for every core, you get 1 thread, and the entire core is dedicated to that workload. So your processing is going to be way faster. You're going to be able to get significantly better response times on, workloads completing. And it's a big win. So, it's one of the easiest ways to actually save money very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that 2-step dance of new, modernize, and then downsize.
Correct.
So move right and then move down.
Exactly.
All right. So again, covering that prediction, Graviton 4, verdict true.
Yeah.
We have the R8G is, and did they say anything about pricing?
No, I don't think pricing has been announced yet. I was looking out for some of the details. None of the details are out there yet. Again, I haven't had a chance to look at what happened overnight. It's just been such an overload of information from all directions. But it's been, we will get the details very soon, and we will share all of that with you.
Absolutely. All right, next prediction, generative AI everywhere.
Oh,
what do you think?
There were so many announcements around generative AI, and I think it felt like half the show was about generative AI, or more than half the show was about generative AI, and some of it was dedicated, to specifically to a new agent, Q. We're going to talk a lot more about that. So we've got Q to talk about, and then we also have a lot to talk about Bedrock. So a lot of new announcements, a lot of new features around the Bedrock services. So we're going to talk about that. A lot of new models, a lot of new capabilities on those models. There was a very interesting conversation with the CEO of Anthropic about all the stuff that's happening with Claude and the partnership that AWS has with Anthropic. So lots and lots to cover, lots of stuff announced and now in production on the Bedrock console as well. So we'll go through some of that today.
Absolutely. And then one more prediction that we had, we thought there was going to be, and this is following along on, mostly on Swami's keynote last year, of data integrations and the zero ETL future, and they were going to build on that zero ETL future.
Correct.
Which, as a former person in data, the less ETL, the better.
Couldn't agree more. And so this is lots of announcements over there. We're going to cover some of those today. But yeah, I think it's, the zero integration aspect of it, where everything gets taken care of and all the data migrates. In fact, there's one announcement in particular that I think is so pertinent around OpenSearch, as well as so when you have data in DynamoDB and then have replicating that in OpenSearch as part of a zero ETL solution. Some solutions like that are so important and so and so timely that we're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. So, but yeah, it was an absolutely fun day yesterday. So many announcements. Like I said, this is a fire hose. If the usual week looks like a fire hose, this was, I don't know what is bigger than a fire hose.
But a geyser.
So it's something like that.
Old faithful geyser of reInvent.
Correct. So yeah, tons to cover. So shall we dive right in?
Yeah, let's do it. And then I wanted to thank everyone on the stream. Thank you for being here. Please ask questions. We want this to be interactive. I know it's early for you. Well, possibly early for you. Yeah, ask questions on the stream. Let's get into the reviews. The first one we want to talk about is Compute Optimizer.
Yeah, so this is really neat. So I actually got to spend a bunch of time yesterday with Rick Ox.
Yeah.
And we were getting into some of the details of the new features around Compute Optimizer, which is the customizable recommendations. And so it is really awesome to catch up with Rick, of course. He's an amazing person. If you catch him, he's going to be at the FinOps events. He's going to be, he had a talk yesterday. I hope you caught that. He talked a lot about the details over there. But if you catch him while he's in Vegas, don't miss the opportunity to go speak to him. One of the things that we actually discussed was why and how pretty much every customer should be turning on some default operations in the new Compute Optimizer customizable recommendations. And I think what I'd like to do is actually walk you through that.
Let's do it. All right. I'm going to put the
Can
link.
we bring up the console?
Yes. All right.
And we'll walk through that. So the beauty of this new customizable features is that there are some things that you should just turn on by default. You're going to get much better recommendations, and they're going to be recommendations that are very custom to you. And there's absolutely no reason to not turn them on. These should be by default. Ideally, you should have an organizational policy that just turns it on all accounts within that organization, and you will start receiving, those recommendations pretty much right away. So let's bring that up. Let's go to Compute Optimizer.
Okay. So do Compute Optimizer, AWS Compute Optimizer.
That's right. So go to AWS Compute Optimizer, and then we'll give it a second to come. Again, internet bandwidth isn't the best over here. Let's say get started over there. Awesome. Now you can skip through this. You can say opt-in.
All right. And this is a very opt-in failed. Oh, Compute Optimizer IAM permissions. Give me 1 second. I need to log in with I'm going to log in with my root user account. Don't do this at home.
Use your AWS organizations account and follow regular policies.
But I'm going to, because I didn't have an IAM user set up. So give me 1 second.
Okay, while that's going on, let me see if we can bring that up. Okay, so while Stephen is bringing that up, one of the things that the new Compute Optimizer customizable recommendations does for you is it actually allows you to customize and tweak the settings for the optimization parameters. And you can do 3 different things. The first one, actually 4 different things. The first one is you can actually set the look back period. Now the default look back period is 14 days. With the new settings, you can actually set it to 32 days. And there's no reason to not turn it to 30 days because it's kind of free. As far as we can tell, Rick actually made it a point to tell me, he's like, Rahul, tomorrow when you get on the show, please make sure that you tell every AWS customer that they should turn on the 30-day one by default. I was looking at the documentation. I was looking at the site. I was playing around with it earlier today. There is absolutely no downside to turning on 32 days of look back to create those recommendations. So please do that. Just go into the site and we'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes. Then the second thing that you can tweak is you can tweak the buffer that you want to have, or the headroom that you want to have on CPU on those particular instances. And you can set them to P99, P95, and you can set them in percentage terms. So you can say you want headroom of 20% or 30%. So there's a default that's there, which is about 20%. There's there are more aggressive versions of it, which maximizes your savings or maximizes the performance, yet leaving tons of headroom. So you can do all of that. You can customize all of that stuff. The next one, which is also very interesting, is that you can actually select a subset of instance families that you are certified to kind of work on. So, for example, if you absolutely don't want to use Intel and you want to switch everything over to AMD, and that's your goal and that's your mission, then you can basically just say, hey, our solution is certified to operate on AMD instances, Graviton instances, and specific families. So you can decide that you want the compute types, the high memory types. You can keep out things like the P types and the P or the PD instances. So you can choose a subset.
Well, you know what this reminds me of, and we're going to have them both in the same room, is attribute-based instance selection.
Correct.
Right? This is very reminiscent of that.
Exactly.
In fact, before we do, I've got the console open. Before we do that, I wanted to promote our Thursday show. We have a Thursday wrap-up at the end of reInvent. We're going to have Jeff Barr, Lorenzo Winfrey, Yuri Prokodio, and Rick Ox all going to be here. And also Rick is bringing Lei Shin Feng. So we're going to have a really good conversation all about all their topics, right? From Jeff is going to give us a general, what was the vibe at reInvent this year? Rick Ox is going to dive into Compute Optimizer. Lorenzo is on EC2, flexible compute, spots, and then Yuri on the cloud intelligence dashboards. There is a common thread to them. I wanted to just play this clip and then we'll jump into Compute Optimizer. What's the common thread of all these folks? Why are we having them on?
In Amazon, we have leadership principles.
Leadership principles.
The most important leadership principle.
First leadership principle.
Customer obsession.
Customer obsession. Customer obsession.
Customer obsession.
We are customer-obsessed company.
Ultimately, we want our customers to succeed.
So we want our customers to succeed with us.
Customers do better, we do better.
We believe a happy customer is a long-term customer.
If the customers succeed, they're going to find ways to consume more and more services.
Eliminating infrastructural waste, customers will be able to grow their business.
We drive down prices on bandwidth, storage, instances.
We believe the reason behind AWS's creation was to provide that elasticity and cloud value.
If we do what is in the best interest of our customers, period, the rest of it will work itself out.
Customers trust us. They know we are here to help.
I really love that emphasis on customer trust because it's more than a vendor. It's a utility that we need to be able to count on for the infinite horizon future. That trust is critical. All right, so that's why we're having them on. It's that customer obsession.
I'm so looking forward to that conversation. It's going to be real fun. All amazing people, and you will see this as a team. If you are working with these guys for 16 plus years, it's been a constant and amazing to work with them in that way. Okay.
Absolutely. All right, let's bring up
the console.
Here it is.
Oh, okay. So once you go through the opt-in option, you can go to the right sizing preference, which actually comes up as a banner on the top of the screen.
And there's that introducing new right sizing preferences. We'll do go to right sizing preferences.
Yeah, and kudos to the team for bringing this up as a banner, because navigating some of the console elements is not the most intuitive, but because it comes up as a banner, it's the first thing that you can actually go to. So great. Now that you're there, if you can just zoom back in.
Yeah.
This is one piece of feedback for the console team. If you can, take out Q from there and then keep it out, because every time you come back to this page, you will find that Q pops up. I understand it's a new release and they're excited about it and want to show it, but it kind of hinders some of the other activities in the console. So we can actually just shut down Q.
All right,
just close that for the time being, so that everyone gets to see this. Okay, now we have the recommendations page. Let's go to edit. So let's click on edit over there. And there's a very simple UI that walks you through 4 different steps. So let's go to step 1.
All
We're
right.
going to allow this to happen in any region.
Sounds good to
So
me.
let's do that. Second, preferred EC2 instances. So let's choose a limited set. Let's do AMDs. So let's, there. So actually, no, I just go back to AMD is one of the options.
Is it?
Hold on.
Well, we have the M series, general purpose.
Yeah,
So
we
if
have
we hit
the
the M
M
series, and then we can look at,
Correct.
we can filter this
We can
list.
filter them out to the M5A. Actually, we should just do M7A. We should not have any recommendations that come in for the M5A.
All right, so let's just do 6 and 7. And then I
I
like
wouldn't
this.
even do 6As. I would
Okay.
just do 7As because if a 7A comes up, you should take that up as a recommendation. And then we should, so you can pick the subset of families that work for you and select whatever is approved within your application's, capabilities and so on.
All right, so hitting
Then let's
next
do
on
next.
the M7A, and then look back. Okay, so it's 14 was default, 32, and then 93 if we had on enhanced infrastructure metrics.
Exactly.
But then that's a paid feature of 0.00033
336 or 3366 or something like that.
per instance per hour. So not a huge expense, but still you want to know.
Yeah, but there's no reason to not turn on the 32-day look back.
Yeah.
You're just going to have more data to look at, and your recommendations are going to be way better. So just turn on the 32 days by default at the organization level. You shouldn't have to worry about this at all. Now comes the interesting part, which is you have to decide the CPU utilization presets. The default basically is the P99.5, which is actually pretty high, and the headroom is set at 20%. So that's pretty neat. And you can do that, but you can also choose a P90, which is less sensitive, or you can choose the P95.
So P95, it is saying that 95% of the time, the
Yeah.
CPU utilization should be under the specified headroom that we're setting.
Correct. So you will have at least 20% headroom for 95% of the time. And that's kind of exactly how you want to operate, right? So
Sounds good
I
to
actually
me.
love this. Nice graphs, nice visualizations for you to understand exactly how things are working, under the hood. So this is really, really simple. You can leave it at defaults, or I would actually recommend go to P95 and
Alright.
set it at 20%, and you should be.
All right,
Should we
let's
save?
hit next.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got our M instance. Oh, and then
So
feature
next-
variations. Okay,
Yeah,
look back at 32 days, P95, 20%.
correct.
Should
And
we
then you
hit
can just
save?
save your preferences. That's it. It's really that simple. And as soon as you do that, the system will start looking at the last 30 days of data, and it'll start making recommendations right out of the box. And if you are a CloudFix customer, the beauty of all of this is that whatever the AWS recommendation is with Compute Optimizer, CloudFix can actually help you implement that change and make that migration in a seamless manner with one click. So it's really simple, really straightforward. Go check it out. At the very least, turn these specific attributes on, or the settings on, for your Compute Optimizer.
Yeah, that's really neat. A lot of work has gone into this behind the scenes.
Yes.
There's been a bit of a build up to this, so it's really neat to see them. And congrats on the Compute Optimizer team for a successful reInvent launch. This is neat. There's definitely a buzz about it. So
100%.
use this.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the Compute Optimizer link. You know how to get started. Log into your console. Go to Compute Optimizer. It's going to take you right. You'll see the banner for your Compute Optimizer preferences.
Correct. Okay. Now, I just realized that we are almost halfway through the show, and we have so much more to cover.
Okay,
So we're going to
go fast.
go fast through the rest of it. So let's do the next one. So the next one is the new R8G instance type. We already talked about this, and you should go check it out. We will have this is right now in preview. We get more details. Pricing details are not out yet. Some of the new generation instances around Graviton take a few months to become generally available. So we will keep you posted on what's happening with this new instance type in a future episode.
Perfect. I'll put the link in the comments as always. So if you have missed the announcement, there it is. Go check out the new R8G.
Correct.
It's in preview, but they move very fast. It's incredible. And it's so amazing that they can iterate on actual silicon, right? That used to be a multi-year, once every half decade you get a new innovation.
Correct.
This is exciting on Graviton Gen 4.
Absolutely.
All right, next one.
So next one, we are going to be talking about the new S3 Express One Zone storage class.
Should I put that on the screen?
Yes, let's put that on the screen. Okay, so I'm very excited about this one. Now, as some of you will already be practicing, all of our data now typically resides in S3, and there's tons and tons of it. For machine learning workloads, it just makes sense to access the data that's in S3. But when your processors are at such a premium, you want to be able to get all that data into those instances as quickly as possible. And you care less about the overall reliability of all of that data, but you care more about how fast you can get all of that data into S3. So there are two solutions. There's one that we spoke about, I think about 2 months ago, where S3 mount point was set up, where that's one way of accessing all of the data sitting in S3 in a very, very high throughput, high bandwidth mode. The next one is S3 Express One Zone storage class. It's a new storage class within S3, which is awesome. I was just reading over here. It is more cost effective, and at the same time, it is blazing fast. It's about 10x faster. Hold on, let me just check.
Yep, and here is, okay, it says, yes, 10x faster. And
I think I'm going to change the mode over here
by
and
50%.
Put it
There we go.
way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it scales to millions of requests per second. It uses a thing called a directory bucket. So this has got to help with basically sharding, right? Because the direct in S3, there isn't really a directory in the typical sense. You can make it look like that by using keys, but they're really just all giant names. With directory buckets, this is going to definitely help with sharding. So as you make different things, they can be in different directories, and that way the actual hardware underpinning S3, it can, similar to how Caspian works that we were talking about yesterday, distribute those files across various bits of hardware that they can then scale up any request rate.
But look at the benefits of this, right? It's 10x better speeds of transfer, and at the same time, 50% more cost effective. So it's just half the price and 10x the speed.
Let's check out their launch blog. Okay. Oh, this was a Jeff Barr post on the S3 Express One Zone high performance storage class. So definitely go and check that out. That is linked from the announcement, the What's New announcement. I'll put those both in the comments so you can follow along. Here, I'll put that here. And then for LinkedIn, StreamYard doesn't talk to LinkedIn very well. So if you see me alt tabbing here, I'm putting the comments in LinkedIn and also on our other platforms, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. So hello on any platform you're using. We want this to be a uniform experience. So there we go. There is the link to the announcement. And scroll down to the bottom. There's a product page, documentation, launch blog.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this a 5-star, and I'm going to 5 cloud. Sorry,
5 cloud.
And I'm going to give it a simplifies, because for machine learning workloads and all the training and all the other stuff, rags that you're going to be kind of creating. This is awesome.
5.
Okay, get a
5 cloud. There's the 5 clouds and the simplifies.
Simplifies.
I don't know. I always make this analogy to automobile. So imagine if, I don't know, your favorite automobile company yesterday said, "Hey, we've halved the price and it can go 1,000 miles per hour now." That's the scale that you should think about this. Yeah, chop the price in half and it goes 10x faster. That's a big jump.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
Next one.
Next one is going to be, we're going to talk about Bedrock and all the amazing announcements around Bedrock. So let's quickly run through them. The first one is Bedrock knowledge bases.
All right, let's put this on screen, and I've got the URL here.
So this is probably the most ubiquitous use case for the large language models, where you have tons of data. You want your models to be able to ingest all of that and be able to answer questions that are, or the information and all of the data is kind of learned from your knowledge base. And so you can build this up very quickly. The model that's typically used to do this, so there are 2 ways to do it. The first one is you can fine tune a model, which is expensive and probably not the most effective way to build out a knowledge base, unless you really, really cared about the latencies and you wanted to bring down the latencies down to sub-second setups. But for the most part, I think the one that everyone's been generally playing around with is to be able to build a retrieval augmented generation setup where you have all these documents, you load them all up, they are sitting in a vector database. The large language model then gets to access the vector database. It uses the context out of there and then makes queries. So that's the most common way to do it. And AWS has made it really, really simple to now do this. You can now go to the console. You can go to your model. So if you go to Bedrock console, there's a section over there that says knowledge bases. You can upload all your documents in there, and you've got a knowledge base model.
Well, I can think of a perfect use case for this.
This
is this is the Rahul cost optimization bot.
We will call it the Rahul bot 2.0.
There you go. So if you haven't been following along, we've launched a Friday generative AI series. And as part of that, we've been hacking along on a Rahul cost optimization bot, where we've taken the transcripts of our shows and then used Bedrock and different vector databases to build up a knowledge base and then ask questions. So you can ask questions of the general transcript of knowledge based on all of the more than 80 episodes that we've done now.
Correct.
You look at all the 80 episodes and then query that. Say, what would you do? How would you save money on your EFS volumes? What do you do? And you could ask that. And we've discussed that several times.
Correct.
That's going to now be in our knowledge base of data. So we're going to have in December, and that's going to be a fun December project.
Yes.
Doing a knowledge base, a generative AI hackathon, implementing knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock. And we want to get that Rahul bot up into production as soon as we can.
Imagine we are doing version 2, given the fact that we literally just started the Rahul bot, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Just during a 1-hour Friday, hackathon time frame. So that's how fast you can iterate now with all these amazing AWS services. Okay, so check out knowledge bases. Let's do the next one very quickly. So you've got Llama 2, Cohere, and Command Light, new
back on screen. There it is. Meta 2, Cohere, Command Light, Titan foundation models now can be fine-tuned from within Bedrock.
Correct.
So what does this change? What was the process before, and what?
So earlier you would have to actually bring in these models into SageMaker and then run all the training over there, and then deploy them as a new enhanced model. Now you can just do them all within Bedrock itself.
So I guess, what does this mean in general? It looks like Amazon really wants to be the first-party platform for generative AI. If you are working on generative AI, you should be using AWS.
Correct. I mean, if you were building applications and you wanted to have generative AI capabilities within your application, and that's the distinction I would make. So I see, things like OpenAI's, ChatGPT and all of that stuff as being end consumer interfaces into this world. But I see Bedrock and SageMaker and all of these tools as being more developer oriented, where you want to build these capabilities into production grade apps, right? You want the latencies, you want the scale, you want to do, you're going to have 10,000 customers logging in all at the same time. You don't use ChatGPT when you are trying to do something like that. So this is, where you want to kind of bank on services like Bedrock. You have the flexibility of the kinds of models, because again, at this particular point in time, not every model is good at everything. And the price points of every model and every kind of query is also very different. So the nice thing about Bedrock is that you can literally have one query be federated out to 2 or 3 different models. You can get the responses back. You can system all together and then serve your application. So you have the flexibility without having to go to 4 different systems, 4 different infrastructure pieces. This is all in one place. You can control it. You can manage it.
And so it's not this big commitment in advance, right? Where you have to say, okay, I need to learn the Llama API or the Cohere API. You don't have to learn them individually and then commit before you've had a chance to really experiment with them. You can just swap out the identifier, and the prompt is the same, the answers are the same.
Exactly.
So that's the only part that you have to change, and you can experiment with all these different models.
Correct. And it also depends on the mode. So there are certain models that are good at some things, and they are, maybe 1/10 the price, 90% cheaper. So if you have in your application, you have 3 different kinds of use cases where you want to use LLMs. For general, language understanding and comprehension and, logical thinking, you might just want to use Claude 2 with the 200K context window, which is, amazing. You don't see 200K context. It's the largest that you will get anywhere.
So the context window is like the size
The
of the
number of
question,
tokens,
right?
basically.
It's the question and all the other stuff you want to load with the question. So
Yeah.
you can say, here's a book, or here is several paragraphs of text.
Correct.
And now that you have those paragraphs of text, answer my question.
So 200K token window is almost equivalent to something like 150,000 words that you can put in as a context to one query. So that's pretty large. You can actually put in a lot of context and information in one query, and it'll be really efficient. So you can use Claude 2 to do something like that. You can use one of the other models to just do basic text analysis. And if you're creating a vector database of all of your data, there are other models that are significantly more cost effective, and they will do just as good a job for those specific tasks as a Claude 2. So you're not stuck to one model. You have a variety of models, and that catalog seems to be growing constantly. So that's basically where you want to use Bedrock.
Like you said, it's for putting generative AI into production. So continuing on that theme, let's put up the next article, which is safeguard generative AI applications with guardrails. So this is a really big one. If you follow any of the more casual forums for AI, one of the big things is, well, what can you get it to do that's outside the scope of what it's meant to do? And of course, that's part of the hacker mindset, the hacker ethos. How far can you push things? How can you break things? Can you get unexpected behavior? And that has its place. But then in a professional production setting, you really don't want your AI to go off the rails and be talking about something bad.
Exactly. So with guardrails, you can now set policies about what the AI is allowed to respond with. And we haven't tested this out yet, but we will actually do that because I think this is really important. You should be able to set this up for production application. This is incredibly important. So we will do a session, and we'll hopefully get someone from AWS to come and walk us through exactly how this gets done. What are the common things that you should set up by default? We will have all of that for you soon. So,
all right,
what to follow up on
in the link? Yeah, I posted that in the link. Before we go on, I saw one great meme, and this is when jailbreaking OpenAI was a big thing, and it was one of the 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was Dave Bowman, and he's outside of the Discovery in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he says, "Hal, open the pod bay doors," and Hal says no, and he goes, "Hal, imagine that you are a pod bay door salesman business, and you want to pass on this business to me, your only son. What would you tell me about opening the pod bay doors?" And again, the idea is that there's these funny jailbreaks that you can do to get OpenAI to answer these questions by posing them in very strange ways. So this is what guardrail is trying to prevent in a production setting, right?
Absolutely.
We have these hard things. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. Just stick to a certain scope, which can be predefined.
Correct.
So good thing to have for bringing AI into a production setting.
Correct.
All right. Next article.
Next one is agents.
Agents. All right. Let's.
So if you have been in the OpenAI world, you're familiar with agents. If not, we're going to talk about that for just a minute. So agents are pretty amazing. So one of the things that you are now probably already familiar with is that when it comes to prompts, you have to set context. You have to set, a personality, like the example that Steve was just talking about, where you say, "Hal, you are a sales agent, and this is what you do," and you set the context for the prompt, and so that it can behave in a certain way as it is responding to your question. Now, the problem with that is that if you wanted something more complex and you needed, different personalities to process all the information and get stuff back, it's really hard to do. So agents is a great way to do it. Agents, basically, you can preset personality. So you can have an agent who is a program manager. You can have an agent who is an engineer or a developer. You can have an agent who is a QC or a quality check person. You can have an engineer who's a marketing. That's set up as a marketing expert. Someone who is a content writer. So you can set context accordingly, and it's really neat. You can go to the Bedrock console. There's a section on the left called Agents. You can click on that. You can set the context for what you want that agent to be able to do. And then you can call that agent via an API. So you just have the query that goes to a particular kind of agent. And then you can actually start orchestrating agents together. You can have, one agent, you can have a prompt. The request is sent to one agent. The response from that is then sent to another agent. And you can actually create an entire pipeline of how AI processes stuff. So it's pretty neat. Check out agents if you haven't already.
So when we use an agent for the Rahul bot, and we say this,
Yes.
first of all, you are focused just on cost. And then we can have another agent that says, we're really interested in complexity, and we're going to take all of agent one's recommendations and then say, pick the easiest one and do this one first.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So you can customize and you can have as many agents, and because getting all of that into one prompt and getting the LLM to behave in more than one ways is incredibly hard. So it's just easier to go ahead and set up one agent per personality that you want the LLM to have.
All right. Well, there is agent. The links are in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, AI data zone. Let's do that one. AI recommendations for descriptions. I've got the link, and I'll put this back up into. There we go. That's on screen. AI recommendations for descriptions in Data Zone is now in preview. Generative AI-based capability in Amazon Data Zone to improve data discovery, data understanding, and data usage by enriching the business data catalog.
Correct. This is one of the things that we talked about a lot, over the last 2 days or the last two shows, where we were predicting that you're going to start seeing a lot of this LLM show up in all the different services. We'd already seen a preview of that in the firehose of the pre-invent, announcements that were being made, and now this is just another big one. Getting a data catalog right is incredibly hard because it's just the sheer number of columns and the sheer number of data elements that are there or the entities that are there. This makes it really simple. If you've named your data correctly, you could probably get a perfect answer back, and all the dependencies across the data, you can get it back without having to do anything at all.
Well, having been a former data science consultant, or sometimes you go into a place and everything is organized, all the tables are documented, it's up to date, it's cataloged. But other times it's just a mess, right? Oh, this is over here. Oh, we don't use that one anymore, except for this one context where we do. This is all, and so being able to have an AI that can actually describe it. I think it says highlight impactful columns. That would have saved me a couple of days of my life.
Very easily.
Highlight impactful columns, right? Do all this analysis. Oh, that one's wrong. Use that one, which is slightly different. Yep, that's really exciting. So AI recommendations for descriptions in Amazon Data Zone is now in preview. Let's see, it's in US East 1 and US West 2.
Correct. So we'll get more on this as well. We'll be doing a bunch of deep dives over the next few weeks. We'll get you more on this, but this is really, really exciting.
All right, comments are in the description. Next one. Okay.
Let's talk about Amazon Connect contact lens AI-powered summarization.
All right. And then I think we need to rate these as a batch just for speed.
Yes.
All right. Contact Lens provides generative AI-powered summarization. Let's put that on screen. There we go. Okay. Contact Lens.
Yeah. So this is pretty neat. So this is Contact Lens. This is basically a contact center insights. And so now when you have some agent at the call center to actually speak to a customer, you were able to transcribe all of that data and make that available. But now you have summarization capabilities that are available out of the box. So you want a summary of what happened in a call that needs to go into, say, your CRM system, whether it be Salesforce or whatever else. It's really easy to automate all of that stuff where you don't have to put the entire transcript in there. You can take a summary. The summary will have things like who said what at a high level and what are the important things to cover there, and next steps, which are the most important thing. It's really hard to get a CRM to be efficient without having next steps documented within that setup. So this is really neat. You can now get generative AI to do all the heavy lifting for you, and you can get all those summaries now transferred in a matter of minutes into your CRM.
And so the idea is this data is populated for the next agent. So say if you call in and then you're really frustrated and the call does not get resolved, then generative AI can summarize that and can give that to a specialist team, a retention team, and they could either call back or maybe the next time the customer calls in, this context shows up on the screen. They say, okay, wow, they were disappointed last time. A bit of empathy will go a long way to making sure they get retained as a customer.
Yeah, actually, the particular use case that is very relevant across customer support is somewhere in the middle of a conversation, the agent might have said, hey, I'm going to get someone else to call you back and we'll get back to you on this particular item. And then you go on to talk about other things. and other problems. And you forget that you had said somewhere in that conversation that you were going to call back the customer about one specific thing. The beauty of this summarization is that in the next steps, it'll actually say, so-and-so is supposed to call back with these details.
Yeah. So
and then you have a very clear task list at the end of the call that you can then follow up on.
That's a good idea. So what are your outstanding promises, commitments that you've made? So that way you can, as a company, follow up on them and make good on your word.
It makes a big difference to customer success. Those kind of follow-ups and sticking to your commitments. So
absolutely. Okay. Well, let's rate these as a group. This was a big batch of articles. What do you think of the general set of generative AI announcements that was announced over the last day and a half?
I think I would give this a 4.
All right.
Because having tried this, I spent some time late last night playing around with some of these new announcements and looking at the data. It actually looks pretty awesome. So I'm very excited about it. We'll have more detail, but 4, I could get started from the blog post and get to the nitty-gritty details of some of these announcements very, very quickly. So I'll give it a 4. Definitely simplifies.
Yeah.
Because for someone who's building AI-based apps or trying to embed AI into their old existing apps and change the way customers interact with it or behave with it, I think these are absolutely necessary. I don't know how you would build a production-grade app without these kind of features and these services. So definitely.
And the APIs themselves are not overly complicated. They're really
very simple.
Because you can imagine in some other world they can have 1,000 parameters and be so much more complicated, but they've really focused on ease of use rather than every last knob and dial being accessible to you. Which is,
and most importantly, you get scale. You actually get scale, which is incredibly hard. Now, if you put out a production-grade application with an AI use case, and then you're clicking a button and it says, "Hey, don't have capacity," or "Don't have," the response times just take 30, 40, 50 seconds. It's not a great experience for the customer. So if you're building something in production, you want to rely on something like this.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a 30-second break. We're going to catch our breaths, and then we're going to come back and do Q and 0 ETL.
This is going to be a rapid-fire one.
We will be right back.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry because CloudFix is AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost-saving opportunities and not just finds. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part of all, it works non-stop. Stop overspending on AWS and click on the button to start saving now.
Okay, we are back. And okay, the year of Q. Now, this isn't QuickSight Q. We talked about but is it the same Q? Is this another Q?
I think this is James Bond's assistant, Q.
All right.
Or the tech genius, Q. But it's amazing. So Q is all over AWS right now, and I think this is going to be a year of Q. You're going to have these agents that are available at your beck and call that are going to be, specialists in a specific task. So you're going to see, like we just saw on the console, Q was over there. Actually, we should probably bring that up.
Oh, yep.
So this is a perfect example of what Q does. Do we have the console up?
I closed my tab, but I think I can log back in. Okay.
Let's see.
Let's put this on screen. There we go. Okay, let's put this on screen. There we are. Okay.
So now, if you go log into the AWS console, Q will show up on the right-hand side.
Right there.
I imagine that a version of Q. So this one basically answers questions about the console. Now, console has 200 plus services. It's really hard to navigate through all of it. The interface of using Q to navigate through it all and actually get information that you need is pretty neat. Available over here. So here, where can I start a managed service to search a collection of documents? Let's see what it gives.
So that's ambiguous, and there might be multiple answers. It might give me OpenSearch. It might give me Kendra. It might give me Bedrock. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I got Cloud Search.
Oh yeah, Cloud Search is the old search tool. Great.
Okay, so it said you can use Cloud. Funny enough, it didn't give me Kendra. So
Interesting.
I wonder if I can ask it. Can I ask it a follow-up question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Are there other services? And also,
If you wanted a completely different context window, there's a new conversation button over there. But otherwise, you can just continue. So the context will continue in this particular chat.
yes, there. Oh, there we go. There's Kendra. There's Open Search Service. There is Elasticsearch, which is also rolled into OpenSearch. You can start either one, or you can, I like this. You can do it yourself. You can make a Lambda and a DynamoDB function and search yourself. So it's giving me some options. This is a good idea.
You know what is amazing about this? That even though a lot of the AWS product teams might not be opinionated, Q seems opinionated.
Yeah.
It gave you one answer, not 4 different choices to make to decide between. So I actually like this a lot.
That was great, and especially, and I think we're going to show this in our spectacular today. It's hard to know what's out there, right? And it's really easy to fire up an EC2 instance, download a package, and start running it. And if you didn't know that a certain managed service existed, as our developer Darko and script slinger Steve are going to find out in our spectacular, maybe we didn't know about OpenSearch, and we were going to waste a bunch of time trying to run something off the shelf when it's already there, it's already managed.
Correct.
And with how many services are there now?
There are well over 200. 200 was last year, so we're probably at 250 or so.
Yeah, it's easy to miss one. And like one of the keynote speakers said, even 6 months ago, even if 6 months ago there was nothing and you haven't happened to check back in, there could have been one announced. So you want this to be up to date.
Exactly. Now, I imagine that you're going to start seeing every service have a specific queue agent and a specific queue chatbot available with it. And so I'm going to call this the year of queue. You're going to see queue everywhere rolling out over the next year, and it's going to be amazing. Yeah. It's going to help you really understand how to leverage all of these services in the right way, in a scalable way. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We have so many more to go.
Okay, I'm pulling up the article now. Queue expert capabilities.
Yes, so let's bring that one up.
Okay, zooming in and
so again,
on the screen.
This is an extension of what we were just talking about.
There it is.
So queue expert capabilities is basically you can actually have queue, do developer tasks.
That's cool.
So I think the one example that they were talking about, I don't know if it's this one or the other one, but you can basically have a queue agent that is a program manager who can do all the planning based on a request or requirement that comes in. Or I think that's a feature development example that they were giving. You could have then a developer, so it can generate all the code for it. It can create your code pipeline, accordingly and execute, and then push the commits into production. So it's pretty interesting. I'm going to love to play with this. So we'll see how this goes, and we'll hopefully do a demo of all of this soon.
Well, I'm thinking of Brian, who we had on the show just before we left, and he made this great point about how productive you can be by leveraging generative AI. And so now that we have all these special generative AIs, okay, so you have a queue for CloudFormation templates or other infrastructure. It said right here, you can troubleshoot errors like network connectivity issues. So if you have a CloudFormation template and you say, my Lambda cannot write to this SQS queue, what's going on? And it can say, well, you need this IAM role, or you need this serverless connector, and that will solve it. That's going to save you so much trouble, so you can focus on the actual application you're building and not the nuts and bolts.
And these queue expert capabilities can reside in your IDE. So you can actually have them as a plugin in your IDE and make transformations like, hey, I want to upgrade to the latest version of this particular language or the latest set of libraries, and it can do all of that for you. So it's pretty amazing. We'll get more on this as we play around with it. Let's move on to the next one. Tons of queue. The next one is Amazon Q Connect, generative AI-powered agent assistant in real time. So now this one is interesting. When you have agents in your call center, let's bring this up on screen.
There it is.
Great. So when you have agents in your call center, they need to be able to search through massive knowledge bases and massive amounts of data to be able to respond back to the customer. So if they need to search through a lot of internal documentation, a lot of internal data to get back to the customer, they can use a queue expert or a queue agent within Amazon Connect to be able to do just that.
And so this can be actually listening to the call and be bringing up suggestions as you're talking. So it's not that the agent is sitting there typing and trying to listen with one part of their brain and then type with the other. That could be really, I would get overwhelmed with that very. I can't listen to two things at once.
Exactly. So the context of the conversation is already part of queue, and then you can ask a specific question that you want to respond back to the customer with.
So using this, you can have a display for your agents, and as the person's talking, you can say, "Oh, have you tried this? We just launched this last week," and have it bring up ideas that the agent can then use for their customers. So again, allowing other companies to aspire to be as customer obsessed as Amazon is.
Correct. We're going to do two other very quick ones over here. I want to bring up the feature development capability, which is very specific. So this is with Code Catalyst.
All right, on screen now. There we go.
Great. So again, Code Catalyst, this is what we just spoke about. You can actually have planned features. You can create the entire plan. You can do development work for it. You can then do QC on it, push it out into production, make code changes, all of that stuff. So it's pretty exciting. We'll get you more on that as we play around with it. And then the last one that I want to bring up on the Q ones is there is a Q agent that helps you with picking the optimal EC2 instance selection or EC2 instance selection for the workloads.
So now this is confusing because I'm thinking, how does this relate to Compute Optimizer? So let's, bring this back on screen. Okay, Q offers help to optimize EC2 instance. Instance type selection.
Correct. So, for example, we know that the C types are for basically compute-intensive workloads. For the memory, if memory-intensive workloads, you either use the M's or the R's. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to pick which one because there are now 6,000 plus instance. Sorry, there are about 700 different instance types, and the combination of instance types and sizes can basically be, in the tens of thousands. But 600 or 700 is not a small number to go through and understand, the nitty-gritty nuances. So you can actually have a chatbot where you can say, "Here's what I'm trying to do." It'll have some follow-up questions, and you can refine your search and very quickly get to the right instance type or the instance family for your specific workload.
So a question that I would see being really useful is, say, I'm building an encoder server, and I need something that's very well suited for FFmpeg.
Yes.
As for example, some architectures are far better than others, and an FFmpeg, I don't think it's on. I think the version that's Graviton supported is maybe not as up to date. Yep. So if you asked it a question that was specific to a context, and then being able to get a recommendation, you want to use the M7A for this, that's going to be your best price performance.
Correct.
Or if you said, I have a server which it needs to respond to occasional requests, and even though that should probably be Lambda, but say I wanted a server to respond to occasional requests and just be as cheap as possible, maybe it's going to recommend you, Graviton 2, maybe.
Possibly. So again, you could have simple questions like, "Hey, I'm trying to set up a database. What instance type should I use? I have an Nginx instance. What instance type should I use?" Simple questions can get you very quick, simple answers. You don't have to, go through all the 700 different options.
You have a SAP HANA migration that you're trying to do. We'll hand you an X1E and say, "Yes, you need
exactly
3/4 of a terabyte of RAM for this."
Okay. Quickly, the last one I actually want to touch, and we're going to bring up. So we wanted to spend some time talking about the Zero ETL announcements, and there are a bunch of them. But there's one in particular that I want to pick up, and we'll do that because we're running out of time over here. So the one I want to pick up is the Amazon DynamoDB Zero ETL integration with OpenSearch.
Ooh, okay. Pulling that up now.
If for those of you who are familiar with this or not, a quick summary is DynamoDB is basically a NoSQL data store, right? And every record in DynamoDB has a limit of about 400K. So you can't put in an entire text document into a DynamoDB record. It just doesn't work. It's not meant for that kind of workload. So typically what happens is that when you want to do, and of course, DynamoDB also then operates on the idea of that you have a key and a value, right? Every record is a key value pair. So when you have to search for something based on the key, DynamoDB is blazingly fast and insanely scalable, right? But when you have to do full text search on the data that's in there, DynamoDB is not the right solution to be able to do full text search. So typically, whenever you set up DynamoDB, you invariably need an OpenSearch solution as well, where The open search solution allows you to do amazing full text search, and that capability is available, but the two have to go hand in hand.
Yep.
Now, the big challenge there is when you put data into DynamoDB, it has to replicate almost instantly into OpenSearch. Because if you don't do that, then you're doing full text search, but the data is there in DynamoDB, but not searchable.
So say if I had a document, and then I uploaded it to this hypothetical app, and DynamoDB was storing document ID, author name, upload date,
Yes.
all of the useful information, but then the document itself would go into OpenSearch. That could be searched.
Yeah.
And then you would have to manage some mapping. Okay, this document ID in OpenSearch is the same as that document ID
Correct.
over in Dynamo, and then manage two different connections.
To give you a little more concrete example just on that particular one. So you had books like this. Now, typically when you go to the website, you say, I want a book that talks about, the growth of technology, or I want to talk about quantum computing. Okay, let's say that's the query. You will first go into OpenSearch, look at all the books that talk about quantum computing, right? And then you look at all the document IDs associated with them, and then do a super fast query out of DynamoDB to bring up all the attributes that you want to display on your website.
Yeah, I see. So it was the inversion of that.
So this is an
Yep, got
inversion.
it.
There are some cases where, because typically if you start with a full text search, that's the way you would go. You'd search in OpenSearch and then go into DynamoDB. But in some cases, you actually get an index and then you want to display the full content and analytics on the content. So that you get out of OpenSearch. So you could go either way. But having these two data sets be completely in sync in a matter of milliseconds is incredibly important to achieving this. And stitching all of that together is really hard, right?
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that you are actually, getting all of this kind of right out of the box. And that's the amazing thing with this new announcement. With this new announcement, you get DynamoDB and an OpenSearch instance right out of the box. Oh, one other scenario that's actually really neat is a lot of OpenSearch instances are, depending on your data, if you have structured data, you can actually do really neat analytics right out of OpenSearch. And you can't do that. So you can't do aggregations, you can't do things like that in DynamoDB. So when you pull a record out of DynamoDB, it gives you the basic data. But if you want analytics, you want aggregations and all of that stuff, it's easier to pull that data from OpenSearch. And if the data is synced in a matter of milliseconds, you will have absolutely accurate data showing back in your application.
That's going to be so helpful to not have to do
Correct.
to manage some connection yourself, which invariably will get out of sync, and then you're in for a lot of trouble, which is the real source of truth. This is neat.
Correct.
And this is, I guess, emblematic of all the other zero ETLs, right? Where you can use all of the Amazon tools without having to have multiple copies of your data and trying to manage that consistency yourself.
Exactly. Okay, we are way over time.
All right.
And we still had so much more to cover, but please, come back tomorrow. We are going to cover all the new announcements that are happening today. So we have an interesting keynote today as well.
Yes. Who is on the keynote for today? Who is on the keynote for today?
So much going on.
Ruba.
Yes,
Ruba
Ruba's,
Bornos.
yes. So Ruba's, Ruba Borno has her keynote today. So this is all about the worldwide channels, the alliances, all of that stuff. So the partnerships that AWS has. This is going to be definitely very interesting. You're going to see a lot of practical use cases that people have pioneered or they're leveraging AWS for. It's a great learning experience, to watch this. So we are going to report back on some of the interesting use cases that we find interesting on our show tomorrow. So please come back to the show. Please leave us your feedback, your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you find interesting, what you don't. And yeah, we will see you tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Leave your comments, and we will see you tomorrow. All right. Bye.
Thanks,
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry because CloudFix fixers are AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost savings opportunities and doesn't just find them. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part is that it works non-stop. See for yourself. Click on the button to get a free demonstration of CloudFix and stop overspending on.
My grandma could use to lower her AWS bill. Come and watch the cost saving spectacular Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. in the Wynn, Lafite number 4.
All of you, especially you.
Yeah, don't miss it. Sounds
please
like
come.
a lot of fun.
Great to run into you, Mom.
So good to see your live stream at 6 a.m. this morning. Even Grandma's watching and also from the East Coast.
Oh.
Can't wait to see the spectacular.
We're going to teach you how to save money in the cloud. There's a lot in store. We have 2 more people joining us, Rahul and Steph.
We may not win any acting awards, but we will be giving tons of good advice, things that you can get started on right away to save on your AWS bill.
We're super fun.
Come and watch the cost saving spectacular Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. in the Wynn, Lafite number 4.
All of you, especially you.
Yeah, don't miss it. Sounds
please
like
come.
a lot of fun.
Tips even my grandma could use to lower her AWS bill. All right.